the rolling, picturesque hills that epitomize the Irish countryside have never been greener. Its music and love for its native Celtic entertainment have never been more lively. And its people are as warm, colorful, and unique as ever.
Just the biggest job. We can spend it.
But despite outward appearances, the Republic of Ireland is in the midst of a major transformation. And like everything Irish, change does not come easy and not without a price. The story of the Irish economy is the classic rags to riches story, but without the happy ending. For centuries, Ireland traditionally was considered one of the worst performing economies in Europe. But starting in the mid-1990s, fueled by economic investment and low corporate taxes, the country saw unprecedented economic growth, only to have it crash during the 2008 recession. In order to understand this story, this documentary will examine Ireland's cultural and economic history, as well as the meteoric rise, tragic crash, and possible rebirth of one of the most robust economies in the world.
So don't forget your heritage, and don't forget all that hard work that's gone into making us what we are.
Lastly, we'll examine how Irish entrepreneurs have made their presence felt right here in Kentucky. Ireland is an island, a lone, ancient North Atlantic outpost that has hosted human civilization for over 9,000 years. The country, located just across the Irish Sea from the United Kingdom, is over 27,000 square miles and boasts a population of nearly 4.5 million people, roughly the same size as Kentucky. Under British rule until 1922, Ireland was a key provider of critical goods, mainly fish, livestock, and potatoes to the United Kingdom for hundreds of years. This need fueled an agrarian economy in which farms were owned by absentee British landlords and worked by poor, rural Irish farmers. This forced reliance on agriculture prevented the country from embracing the Industrial Revolution and the creation of new industries and jobs that came with it. In essence, Ireland was being left behind. A growing population coupled with the lack of jobs eventually forced Ireland to export their most precious cargo in order to survive. In 1841, Ireland's population was 8.1 million. 40 years later, that number was cut in half. According to the 2011 census, 34.5 million Americans can trace their roots back to Ireland, including 22 U.S. presidents from Andrew Jackson to Ronald Reagan and even Barack Obama. Even gaining independence from the UK in 1922 did little to change its economic outlook. A push toward a protectionist, self-sufficient agenda with the state taking control of several industries only discouraged outside growth. It was until the 1960s that the country moved towards a free trade policy focused on high technology and foreign investment. Ireland Consul General Paul Gleeson says entrance into the European Economic Community, coupled with government policies that embraced outside investment, created an Irish economic boom, known around the world as the Celtic Tiger.
It was only when governments in the late 80s, early 1990s began to balance the books in Ireland, we really saw the Irish economy take off then from the mid-1990s. And as you know, for the best part of a decade or more, Ireland had some of the strongest growth in the European Union, and year after year, the strongest growth. So, you know, a lot of that was very export-led. We had a lot of success in bringing in US foreign direct investment, particularly. A lot of major US companies who, when they were looking for where to situate their European headquarters, decided on Ireland.
The lure of low corporate taxes attracted high-tech and pharmaceutical companies to Ireland, such as Google, Pfizer, Microsoft, and Facebook. Between 1995 and 2008, Ireland's GDP grew an average of 5 to 6% a year. Its ratio of GDP to public debt a key factor in determining economic vitality, shrunk to 25%. Its unemployment rate, often the cause of Irish emigration, dropped to 4.5%. House prices skyrocketed. Household earnings were at record highs, and for the first time, industry, and not agriculture, became Ireland's leading commercial sector. Ireland's economy was the envy of the world, but not for long.
Over the second phase of that growth, we saw too much of it reliant on a property boom and on construction-related tax revenue. And that was the big part of the problem. So when a property bubble popped and when the economy crashed, we ended up in a lot of trouble around 2008.
Voters in the Republic will have their say on what new government will try to lead them out of one of the most tumultuous times in the country's history. Its woes have been reported on and analysed endlessly, but how does the Republic turn the corner? And will a new government be enough to change how it's seen at home and abroad? Karen Atkinson has been to Dublin to find out.
The 2008 global recession rocked Ireland hard. But according to Rossa White, chief economist for the National Treasury Management Agency in Ireland, a number of factors, not just the recession, converged to create the perfect storm that shook Ireland's economy to the core.
We've seen a big run-up in unemployment from the construction sector, a lot of jobs lost in that sector. The public finances started to deteriorate fast. And again, because we were so property dependent, the hit was quite dramatic. At one stage, almost 20% of our tax revenue at the peak of government revenue came from the property sector. I mean, and it was cyclical. It was transaction-based taxes. So it was a crazy situation. That dried up, but of course we had we'd about tripled our level of government expenditure through the 2000s. So once the revenue disappeared, you ended up with huge deficits. So I would say the banking problem was bigger because the construction exposures were so large, and you had that double whammy, which I mentioned. But there was an underlying government finance problem and a kind of latent loss of competitiveness that had happened gradually through the 2000s. So your export sector couldn't function. Of course, global trade dried up as well. Your public finances were in bad shape, and your banking system was pretty much destroyed certainly as we moved into 2009.
The recession quickly turned into a depression. Within 2 years, the economy contracted 14%. Unemployment rose nearly 15%. An overpriced housing market went bust. Tax revenue was slashed. The vaulting GDP to debt ratio, 125%. Mismanagement in the banking sector saw 85 billion euro in unpaid loans to Irish banks guaranteed by the government. According to a report by the National Economic and Social Council, Ireland was bankrupt. Ireland joined other countries such as Spain, Greece, and Portugal in getting bailed out by the EU and IMF, but this bailout came with provisions that included major cuts in government spending, coupled with serious institutional financial reforms.
Really, Ireland had no choice at the time. You know, we had no choice but to cut back. We ran out of options, unfortunately, in terms of international lending, and we were forced to go to institutions like the European Central Bank and the IMF for assistance. And so we had very little option. We had to cut back. And governments have tried to do that in as fair a fashion as possible. You know, lots of these decisions are going to be controversial, and sure enough, you know, when new measures are introduced, like property taxes or like water charges, those things do prove controversial. But this path, I think, that was set for us when the crash hit in 2008 was never going to be easy.
The government did not want to default on its debts. It was going to do everything impossible to make sure that they repaid every cent. And that's something that's very different from what's happened in Greece. Of course, there's already been a restructuring in Greece. So I think the political angle is often neglected. The economics, of course, matters, and you have to kind of get a little bit lucky on that. You need some growth impetus, and we got some good help from Europe on interest rate reductions and the ECB action. But it was very important that the government did not want to default. They were steadfast in wanting to get out of the problem. So I would say, if I was to pick out one thing that we did right, it was when we said we'd do something in that period, 2011 through to 2013, that main recovery period. When we said we'd do something, we did it.
Since the bailout, it appears that Ireland has finally turned the corner. GDP grew 5.4% so far in 2015, and unemployment has dropped to under 10% at 9.8%. These signs point to success ahead, but many are not convinced. Slow growth in sectors outside of IT and pharmaceutical industries have many wondering, is the Irish economy truly on the mend, or is it all blarney?
The reality is, I think the labour market is your best guide. Things have improved hugely, and in Dublin, that unemployment rate is closer to 8%, Dublin and the commuter counties. So there has been a huge improvement. Yes, a lot of it has been concentrated in the multinational sector, but that doesn't really matter if they're high-value jobs. We've also seen big increases in agriculture, more agribusiness, so more refined products like ingredients, whey proteins, all that sort of thing. Yes, the multinational sector is very important, but there's lots of other things going on, and you just have to look at the job numbers, and that tells you that there's a genuine recovery out there.
Today, look around. Look around. Find yourself a mentor who can guide you as your career develops.
While Ireland has seen its share of hardships, it also produces success stories, and no one embodies Ireland's entrepreneurial spirit better than Pierce Lyons. Irish-born, Lyon used its experience as a biochemist to found Alltech Lexington Brewing Company, as well as Alltech Industries, a Kentucky billion-a-year global animal health company founded in Lyon's garage for $10,000 in 1980.
From the very beginning, we decided we would be an international company, perhaps because of my background coming from, as I do, from Ireland. So as soon as we set up the company in the United States, we immediately set up a sister company in Ireland, a sister company in England, because that's where I did my PhD. And so we were international from the beginning, as we say in Kentucky, I think, from the get-go.
He takes entrepreneurship personally, pledging up to $500,000 annually to projects of interest that would have a direct economic impact on Kentucky and Ireland. He contends Irish entrepreneurs aren't better, but there is something unique about risk-takers coming from the Emerald Isle, telling me, if you think about it, for hundreds of years we were under the rule of Britain, and as such, we learned how to deal with authority while at the same time finding a way around the rules. Perhaps today, that might be called entrepreneurship. Lyon's thoughts echo others in the Irish community. Like it or not, they're now bound to the highs and lows of a global economy. There are people that are optimistic about their future, but acknowledge that getting there won't be easy. Then again, in Ireland, nothing ever is. I'm Matt Lambert.